So the foundation of geometry is kind of built on these very small shapes, like points, lines, planes. And then we use those small shapes to create bigger and more complex shapes. So we're just going to talk about some of these basic shapes that we start with and how we draw them, how we label them, that kind of thing. All right. And so a point just indicates an exact location. If we want to pinpoint exactly where something is, we use a point to indicate that. And when we plot a point, we've done that in algebra. We just draw it as a dot. Really, it should be as small as possible. But if you draw it a little bigger, that's okay. Points technically aren't supposed to have any length or width or any of that kind of stuff, but we can't draw them that way. That's impossible. When we label a point, we label it with a capital letter. So I would call this like point A. And then if I wanted another point, I would draw it. I would call it point B, okay? Or point C or point D. But we always use a capital letter just to indicate that there's a point that exists there, okay? And really, there are points everywhere. It's just a matter of whether or not we're labeling them, okay? A line is a straight path that extends forever in opposite directions. And really, we only need 2 points to make a line. So if I had something like this guy, I'll call it point A, and here point B. If I want a line, I would basically connect those and have it extend forever in each direction. And the way I express that this thing goes on forever is I use those arrows on each end. See, without the arrows, I'm showing that this thing stops, but the arrows say this keeps going forever. Okay? And so that's a line. It extends forever in opposite directions, and I only need 2 points to create it. 2 points allow me to make a line. And again, that's a concept that should roll over from algebra if you remember that. A ray is kind of like a line that's been cut in half, okay? Oh, sorry, I forgot to label the line. Lines can be labeled in a couple ways. I would just use the 2 points that I used to create the line, AB, and draw a line above it. And again, it has to be a line with the little arrows to show that, hey, this represents a line, okay? Sometimes we'll see like a little letter off to the side. A lot of times it's in cursive, like a little L right at the end of the line. So we can just call it line L. All right, that's an acceptable way to do it as well. That'll always be like a lowercase cursive looking letter. All right. But again, it's just so that we have accuracy and we have clarity in terms of what we're describing. All right. For no other reason than that, I want everyone to be able to understand what I'm talking about when I label this thing. And so by labeling it and showing that it's a line, that's all that we really care about. As long as I can state that it's a line, you know, and distinguish that from something like a ray. And so like the next one, the ray is like a line that's been cut in half, okay? It extends forever in one direction, so it has an endpoint on one end, and it extends forever on the other end. So let me use the same points. Let me use something like A and B. So here's A, here's B. And here's the difference. Here's the slight distinction between a line array is I would start at A, and I'm just going to go forever in this direction. So I put an arrow on one end, and that's it. Okay. So over at A, it stops, but when it heads towards B, it keeps going forever. All right. And yeah, that's slightly different. So we have to label it in a different way. So again, I would use the 2 points that I used to create it. So AB, and I would draw a ray above it. Okay. And it's important that you draw that ray in the right direction. Notice part of the labeling here shows me exactly what I'm talking about. Notice that the end point is with A and the arrow is with B over here in my label. Well, that's how it exists here on the ray itself, okay? I cannot call this one, I wouldn't be able to say BA like this and have the arrow going this way, okay? That would be incorrect, okay? Because that would have the end point at B and the arrow at A. So just make sure it matches the drawing. Okay, that's the idea here is we want to be very specific about our labeling so that it matches the drawing so that if I say ray AB, anyone can go ahead and draw that with accuracy. Okay, so again, we want to be specific. That's the whole point of these labels and why we label things the way we do, so that it's specific enough to tell anybody who needs to know what exactly we're talking about. Okay. A segment basically ends on each end. So, you know, the line went forever in each direction. The ray we kind of cut off, so it only went for forever in one direction. And now we cut it off again. So imagine cutting that ray again. So same points, A and B. But instead, it's going to end at each of these. Okay, I don't keep it going on either of these ends. And when I label the thing, I have it stop on each end, no arrows. Okay, so it's showing me that it stops on each side. Okay.